Hello and welcome to the Slumbering Sloth Book Nook, a podcast about all things books, publishing and more. My name is Emma and today my guest is Debbie Williams. Debbie is the founder and director at UCLAN MA Publishing and also runs their publishing programme. Now on with the show. Hello Debbie, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not so bad, yes, not so bad. Just editing at the moment.
Oh, no. Oh good, that's cool. All right, so thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it. So, your job's quite different to a lot of my other guests. So, can you tell us about your current role?
Yeah, sure. I have a really unusual role because I have 2 or 3 different jobs that I do.
You're a very busy person.
Yeah. So, I mean, originally I started in publishing and bookselling at Waterstones, and I started on the shop floor. And within a few years, I kind of became manager and then moved up to head office. And then I was wondering what to do because that was all during the Harry Potter time. So I organised all the midnight launches and all that kind of stuff. And I just got lucky, got into children's books just at the right time when the Harry Potter boom hit. But then I said I would leave and do something else when the last Harry Potter came out, and that's what I did. But I didn't know what to do. And I was just annoyed that no one was training publishers in the north of England, which is where I'm from.
Yeah.
So I kept nagging the University of Central Lancashire, please do publishing, please train publishers up north, because there were no courses whatsoever in the north.
No.
From north of Oxford and south of Stirling and Edinburgh in Scotland, no courses.
It's just a zone of nothing.
How crazy is that?
That is
really
crazy.
stupid. So they had a long tradition of doing a really good journalism course, and I had spoken to their students, their English students, every year because that's kind of the area that I'm from. And so I just kept nagging them, and eventually they were sort of saying, well, you come and set it up for us. Even if you don't run it, you come and set it up. And I was like, no, I'm not an academic. I don't do that sort of thing. But I did decide to help them out, and somehow I just became course leader. But the one condition was that it had to be the most practical course in the country, and that we had to do it for real. So they were almost like apprentices on the course. They were actually doing the publishing for real. And the only way to do that, I figured, was to actually set up a publishing course as well as a publishing house actually that ran alongside the course, and to make them employees of it. Didn't know I was doing something new with that, but apparently it was the first of its kind. So there aren't any more student-run, student-led publishing houses. I've looked. There are publishing houses within universities, but they're a separate thing.
Yeah.
The students aren't involved in them, and they're academic. Whereas we are trade, and have always been. We've certainly expanded over the last year, but basically we've always been a trade publisher, and we've always kind of gone through Amazon and Waterstones and worked very closely with the industry, and that's always been the case. So now, publishing house, we didn't know how it was going to go. No one's ever done it before. So, and, you know, we've really just exploded in the last year. Everything's completely changed. And so we've had to take on dedicated staff for the publishing house. Of course, we've taken on our graduates because it makes sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's kind of what's changed in the last year, but seems to be working.
Yeah.
And we've also set up a BA, an undergraduate program, which is the first pure BA publishing in the country. Again, we don't quite know how this is going to go because no one's ever done it before. And, you know, we've also tried to just start really fighting for recognition of publishing in the North, and set up kind of regional meetings for publishers up north to talk to us. I'm not against the South by any means. I worked in London for 15 years. It's not that. It's just there's a huge talent pool in the North that currently isn't really being tapped into. So, you know, it's something that I feel strongly about, and we're trying to change. I mean, also if it's very, very London centric, not just the north, but London centric, then you don't get a cross section of people publishing, and that's wrong. It's not representative of reading in this country. It could be diverse, put it that way. And the only way to do that is to kind of maybe move an arm of a big publisher somewhere else.
Yeah. I think they're starting to think about that way a little bit more, and I think you can start to see that with the shift with the bigger publishers. I mean, we have the problem down here as well in southwest of England, like Cornwall, Devon, Somerset. So we're quite like you guys, sort of. There's loads of us down here that have. We have to travel up to London to go to all these events and stuff, and I think that it would be amazing if we could have some office down here, or even up there, no matter, even if it was just one up north or one down here, that we could sort of learn new things. And there's such a massive talent of people. I've met so many talented people, and it's, I don't want to just move up to London, but it's just, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I know. And in some ways, the southwest is worse. Cornwall is worse than we are. Because in Preston, it's like everybody thinks, oh, where's Preston is what I get a lot when I go speak to the publishers.
Yeah.
Hell is Preston. And I just say, well, it's just shy of like 2 and a bit hours to London, which I'm really shocked at. Whereas Cornwall can be sort of 5 hours on the train.
Yeah, like I think it's about 3 hours on the train from Plymouth, which is quite, and that's the fast train into Plymouth. But yeah, I mean, even down in Cornwall, which is the crazy thing is for us is that Plymouth is 2 hours from Penzance, which is basically the end of Cornwall. So it's quite, even with us, you're like, that's quite far away. But the funniest thing I had was people thought Plymouth was near Bristol, and I'm like, it's like 2 hours from Bristol. It's like the opposite direction, but it's I get you. I really get you.
It's a part of the world I know really well because I go to Mousehole quite regularly. So I have a friend who is she's the editorial director of HarperCollins.
Oh, right.
She's the editor of George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones.
Wow, that's so cool.
She's one of my best friends, and she has a little writer's retreat which she gives to me occasionally. And she lives in Mousehole 6 months of the year. She lives in Morocco 6 months of the year, and she has a flat in London.
Wow. That's
Dream life. But she's only allowed to do that because she did a time in London in publishing and then became the editor of George R.R. Martin. So that's what you have to do if you want to be living in Cornwall and still working in publishing.
No, I want to be drinking cocktails like on a beach in the middle of Australia. That would be my dream.
Yeah, well, she married a Moroccan Berber tribesman.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, on a climbing expedition. And that's why she lives 6 months of the year in Morocco.
That's fantastic. That's such an interesting story. So,
she's actually, we published her because she is actually an author as well.
Oh, fantastic.
She told that love story in one of her books, fictionalized.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. So, given your sort of lengthy experience with publishing and obviously now becoming sort of a lecturer in publishing and the director at UCLN, if I'm saying that right, what do you think? Yeah, UCLAN. Yeah, So what do you think of the key skills that you sort of acquired over the years in your role? Like, what do you think are the key skills that you need to sort of get into publishing?
I took a bit of a back route and fell into it, and everyone will annoy you by saying, I fell into publishing. It's so annoying. It's so annoying because that's not what people want to hear. But certainly the grounding in bookselling really helped because I was just able to understand that it was a commercial business. When we advertised for an assistant, a publishing assistant, we got the same response as every publisher gets, which is hundreds of the same application over and over again from people who just love books.
Yeah.
Generic, I just like books.
I have a passion for books.
Which is great, but that's a given. If you're putting in for a publishing assistant's job, it's a given. You don't need to say it.
That's why you're applying for the job, aren't you?
What did seem to be the case was that even some of the ones we interviewed did not seem to understand what publishing was. I can understand that in some ways, but do your research. Just make sure that you are regularly, for example, buying the Bookseller magazine and reading it from cover to cover. It's out every single Friday, and it will tell you exactly what's going on in the industry, what the bestsellers are, who the big movers and shakers are, that some of the small publishers, what they're doing that's quite innovative, and just all the people in publishing, because it's a big network, are featured in there. And all the hot topics. It's just kind of a shortcut. So I would highly recommend, especially if you're a student, you can get a discount in getting that. And a lot of libraries, our library gets it, so you can sit and read it in the library if you want.
Ours does, yeah. It's really good because our little publishing base room at the top of its view is amazing. It looks at the Plymouth Sound, but we've got this like little sort of cubby area where we can sort of read it and just like look at it. It's really good that they can get hold of it and you can just read it every week, so it's really good to have that resource. I
mean, it's a business, and even if you go into a publishing house like ours that's not for profit, we're not for loss either. The university doesn't constantly fund us. It seed funded us and then basically gives us the facilities, but we have to make our staff costs back. So we still have to make money, and every single book starts with a profit and loss sheet. So, will this book actually have a market apart from anything else? If you don't ask that question, then the author will never get read. And that won't be very good for the author. It doesn't matter if that's a niche market. It can be. It can be about, I don't know, bus spotting in the Hebrides, and it will have a market. But so long as it has a market, it's a business. And I think there's nothing to be frightened of. I would have been when I was an English graduate, that word, horrible. But actually, it makes a lot of sense. Just asking if there's an audience for that book. And then if there is an audience for that book, then how much do you want to spend and what do you want to do marketing and advertising, and how can you be really creative with little money that publishers have for marketing? It's just kind of knowing that there's more than editorial in publishing as well. So when we invite people for publishing assistant, we might ask the question, what do you think you'll be doing? And really hadn't a clue. No. They hadn't done the research at all into what a publishing assistant might do. So, everything, if you're a small publisher, from marketing to designing advanced information sheets, to, thinking about ways that we can do events, and all that kind of stuff. Digital, ebooks, audiobooks, that sort of thing. But a lot of admin as well. Yep. So any admin and retail experience that you've got, brilliant. That's all good. And I would say programs wise as well, if you were to teach yourself one program to get into publishing, would be InDesign.
Yes, InDesign. That challenge.
Desirable thing that publishers are looking for. And if you can say, I can confidently use InDesign and Photoshop, and maybe even Audition and HTML, but the publishers will go, right, when can you start?
That's my challenge over the summer then, is to teach myself something new. My partner's fine with this, just me. I can't do it, but I will try.
Can get, I think it's like a 3 months trial for free on InDesign, and then there are tons of YouTube videos, and just mess with it every single day.
Yes.
And we provide loads of InDesign training, but at the end of the day, it is up to the students to keep practicing it outside. And those that do are the ones that get really good and just can, we've had, Emma, for example, went to Raintree Publishers and taught the entire head office team how to use it because they didn't know how to. Got herself a promotion within 3 months.
Wow.
we do provide the training, but ultimately you have to keep practicing it. You have to keep designing AI sheets, designing adverts, and then put together a portfolio, because we'd love to see it. You know, if we advertise for a job and a student brings along a load of stuff that they've done for mock-ups, it's fine if you haven't, you know, done that for real. But if you have a look at some of the things that publishers are doing when it comes to posters and adverts and maybe online Twitter feeds and all sorts of things like that, and have a go yourself at designing a few things, and then print them off and put them in a portfolio and bring them to the interview, great, absolutely brilliant, love to see that. That's so much initiative and enthusiasm always. You know, if you sit there and kind of say, yeah, I kind of like books, it's not going to get.
It's not going to fly.
No, and, you know, do make sure that you actually do keep up to speed with what's popular. So they will ask you inevitable question, what's your favourite book and what you're reading right now? And you'd be amazed at the amount of people can't answer that. Yeah. You're not going to be one of them, but there was quite a lot of people who panic at that point. Think, oh, I haven't actually thought of something. Yeah. And I wouldn't, if you're applying to a publisher, I wouldn't necessarily pick their books either. Maybe one of their books, but then throw in a few unusual things that might pique their interest a bit and show that you're following trends, because publishers love trends.
Yeah, I mean, I go into Waterstones at least, I think, once or twice a week to go and have a look at their what's on their top sellers, and I think that's a really good way to learn. I think I started a trend at my course because everyone was doing it, but it's good to know exactly what is going on in the world of publishing, and it's good to keep clued up all the time. I mean,
one of the things that we do as publishers is we plan a couple of years ahead at least. So we're already planning 2021. We already know what we're publishing in 2021, more or less. Things come along, but at the moment we know we've got it all planned out. But, you know, a lot of that is based on research in the market. So we're thinking, right, what anniversary is coming up? Because that's what the media will be covering. So, for example, this year it's all about moon. It's a moon year. Because it's the anniversary of the moon landings. Yes. So, all the schools are doing moon landings at the moment, and it's on the curriculum and all the rest of it. So that means that publishers are going to be doing moon books. Yes. And we're no exception. So we've got a book coming out on the 3rd of June, and then we've got this tour in schools, 17th to 21st of June. I've got moon nails right now. Wow. That's one of the marketing things that I do. So, you know, it's knowing what's going on, and also look outside of publishing for trends, because publishers do. So for some bizarre reason, last couple of years, it's been about llamas, cacti.
Yes, and sloths. I noticed sloths as well.
That's big at the moment.
Yes,
yeah,
hence
absolutely.
The podcast name, and my laptop has a sloth on it. Everything has sloths.
Everyone's sharing videos of sloths.
Yes. They're the best animals. They literally are so slow. That's why I love them. Hence the podcast.
It's kind of noticing those kind of things, but well enough in advance, because obviously we're planning 2 years in advance. Yeah. You don't want to jump on the bandwagon too late.
No.
So sometimes, I mean, I used to do this as a buyer. I used to look through 10,000 lines of books every single day. So I was like a sponge of, kind of knowing what was going on and what was trending and what was current. And I used to do that every single day, track the sales from not just Waterstones, but outside the whole business, to make sure I hadn't missed a book that Waterstones was supposed to be stocking. But because of that, you could think, oh, okay, right, so we've got zombies this year. So where do zombies go? You know, what's going to be the next thing? If people are interested in zombies, then probably ghosts are going to be coming after that. You can kind of follow it.
Yeah.
So it's just about noticing trends as well. And if you talk a lot about that in an interview, publishers will be like, wow, yeah, okay, we need to do a slot book now. Thank you for that idea. When do you want a job?
Please, yes, that'd be amazing. Yeah, I mean, you probably remember the great sort of vampire trend of like 2008, 2009, because a certain book series came out. But I remember going to a bookshop, because I was the target demographic for that. Well, I was 14, going in there and looking at all these books. Yeah.
Which book are we talking about?
We're talking about the Twilight series, but, you know, I'm going into the bookshop and looking at, and they were everything. It was, all the YA fiction was paranormal romance. And I think
black and red, all of it.
Yeah.
Black and red covers everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And I think I was one of those people that fell for it and bought loads of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was given a proof of that, which I still got in my cupboard just over there. Yeah. I was given a proof of that book, and I read it, and I was right and wrong. I said, this is going to start a massive trend. It's going to sell hundreds of thousands of books. Correct. However, I don't think it's crossover. I think it's going to be teenage. Wrong. And I also said, and I hate that cover. Because it doesn't say vampires.
No, it doesn't.
But I was wrong. Right and wrong, because basically it didn't initially take off, and it was largely because of the cover. It wasn't flagging. But then when people had read it, word, spread the word. It was word of mouth. There's no question about that. So I was right and wrong on that front. But do you remember a series called Vampirates?
No, I do not know.
Oh, okay, we're going to be publishing those.
Oh, are you? Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. Because I remember, I read all the PC Cast books when they came out, and they were massive at the time. They were probably a little bit above my age range, but they were big, because everyone I knew read them. But I think it was just the trends at the time. It is noticeable, and I think it's incredible how quick trends move on as well. Yeah. So... Yeah.
It's kind of judging what is going to be around for a bit, and what's going to die a death in 2 minutes. I mean, adult publishers have this all the time. We're a children's book publisher, but adult book publishers have this all the time. Shall we publish a celebrity or not? Because it's a gamble. Because the star can wane overnight. Absolutely overnight. So we had a band a long time ago, and you're too young to remember them, called Hearsay.
I remember Hearsay. I remember them.
We bought thousands of the annuals that were signed, and there was the police. They were going to come and they were going to do a signing in Manchester. The police wouldn't let them because they were too big and they couldn't cope with them. So they sent these annuals instead, and we obviously expected the door to be trampled down. And then I can't remember what happened, but something happened and they died overnight, literally overnight. And we were left with thousands of copies of these annuals, and we had to pull them. So you just don't know when a celebrity is going to, will it be worth investing in or not. Having said that, we're doing 2 books with celebrities. So they better not wane.
Touch wood, it goes all right.
Just signing a contract with Chris Packham at the moment.
Right, yeah.
Obviously things have been delayed because he's been through such a traumatic time at the moment. So when that is sorted out, he will hopefully get finalised with us. But it's going to be a 5-book series with us, and it's going to be children's. That's all I can say.
That's very interesting news. Yes, very, very good.
And we've already been working with Christopher Eccleston as well.
Wow. Yes.
So he did Cold Bath Street audiobook for us.
Yeah, I've just seen that actually. Yeah.
lucky students got to go down to London at ID Audio, which is probably the best studio in London, audiobooks. So the day before, for example, they'd just been doing a book with David Attenborough. And David Williams, they do him. So they were lucky they got to sit in the gallery and direct Christopher Eccleston reading our book.
He's a fantastic actor. He's such an interesting... That must have been an amazing experience. So
I got to be the producer on that one.
Wow.
Never produced an audiobook before, so that was interesting.
It was an experience for you then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I was on a learning curve because we've just validated the first module in audiobooks ever.
Oh, wow.
Apparently. I really did think somebody else had an audiobook module, but apparently they don't. We're the first again. So we've just built an audiobook studio below my office at the university. And that's all set up and the technicians in place now. So in September, the students that start in September, they are going to be doing an audiobook module. And they're going to be making an audiobook from scratch, including auditioning actors and things like that.
Awesome.
And then actually producing the audiobook for real. One of the first books they're going to do is The Harm Tree, which is one of our YA series. Got the proof.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's just the proof.
For people listening, it's really, really, really lovely. It's like a tree and it's all knotted. It's so lovely.
This is actually going to be a series. It's by a debut author that we had to fight for in an auction, which was pretty cool. But her name is Rose Edwards, and it is basically, to give a shortcut, Game of Thrones for YA.
That's really cool. The cool YA Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an epic fantasy.
That's great.
So for avid readers, well, we've been sending these out and they've been going like hotcakes. People are really excited about it. That's July, the first one. And we go on a 2-week national tour for that one as well.
You guys are so busy then.
Yes. So, yeah, we've got tours in June, July, August, and then October we've got 3. Just when the new students join us, we've got 3 book tours.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the next question I just sort of wanted to ask was, what was the key challenges setting up a publishing program?
Okay, so I guess the fact that nobody had set up a publishing program with a publishing house attached to it. So I joined something called the Association of Publishing Education, which represents publishing education around the globe, is the most active in the UK. In fact, I was the chair of it until last year and I had to step down, too busy. But, you know, that basically means that there's a little club where all the course leaders can talk together because there's not that many of us. But nobody had done it before. So the challenge was, you know, trying to set a publishing house up. There was a trade publisher within a university, within the processes. Not easy.
No.
And it's still not easy, especially in the last year when we really have become... you know, we've had best-selling books, celebrities, and all the rest of it. You know, within our financial processes and our HR processes and our legal processes within the university, absolute nightmare. That is not, you know, to slag off my university. That is just to say that universities are set up in a different way to publishing houses.
Yeah, of course.
So we've all been on this huge learning curve. There are advantages and there are disadvantages. But, you know, everybody is totally invested in the student experience. That's the one thing that kind of drives us all together, thinking this is the best thing for the students because they are highly involved in every aspect. They can't sign off financial paperwork, but other than that, they can do everything. Yeah. So they work with me to design our marketing campaigns. We have an acquisitions meeting where we decide what we're publishing for the next year. And the students run that. I just chair it. If they say no, it's no. That's it. We can't publish it. So it is literally run by students. So, we've been in a situation where we've got a really, really big name author who wants to come to us, and I can't say yes to them. I have to run it past the students and they kind of like that, the authors as well, though, but that brings its own challenges. We have to run everything past the students. We rely on them to, help us design the marketing campaigns. We rely on them to be there at the events and all the rest of it. So has its own risks with that one. And they need a lot of support. But I still believe it's the best way to do it. And the ideas that they come up with are, really amazing. And maybe something that we're entrenched. We've been, doing this far too long, and they come up with fresh ideas, and it's wonderful for that to happen. So Justin Samper, who I spoke about with Vampirates, he wanted to come to us because of the students. And one of the provisos in the contract is going to be that the students have to be involved in every single aspect of the publishing process.
That's a really good hands-on experience for them, especially with, I think apprenticeships are quite an interesting way to, I know it's a degree, but sort of incorporating an apprenticeship kind of style learning to it. It is done in other industries, but it's not really done in creative industries. I not that I know of, especially in publishing.
No, and it's kind of easy and difficult at the same time to do. All we have to do is plan it well in advance so that you can align when we publish to when the students hand in the assignments. So, for example, some of the assignments are to design a marketing plan for the Home Tree. That was an assessment really recently. And we integrated all their marketing ideas from their marketing plan assessments into what we're doing now for the Harm Tree to promote it. But they got credit for all the work that they did towards the Harm Tree on the course. So it's all integrated. And for the audiobook module, they have to actually make an audiobook from beginning to end. And that's the assessment.
Yeah. Handing
in the audiobook finished.
Yeah.
And their dissertation, they can do a research dissertation. Nobody ever does. Nobody.
No. Well, Dale's got one of those on his course, and I think everyone does practical. They can choose a topic in publishing and they can research it and do a normal dissertation, but there's this other option which is obviously more appealing to them. I warn them it's harder work, but in some ways. But basically they can take on a book and do it from scratch. So they commission it, they edit it, they lay it out, they do typesetting, they do design, everything, and they hand in a publishable PDF to us. So that is what they work on all year, and that's their dissertation. So they can then take it to a publisher and say, right, okay, so at university I did this book. I commissioned it, I designed it, I edited it, I worked with the author, I project managed it, and here's the book. Yeah.
And they kind of go, whoa. Pretty much all of the ones that I'm looking for now on my shelf. I don't know, I've got one hanging around because I took them all in. But for example, Cold Bath Street, that was a 4 students' dissertation.
That's incredible. Yeah, the fact they all work together on a novel is amazing. I wish I could do that.
Yeah, no, I think I packed them all in a bag because I was doing a schools talk. But we're doing that right now. So we've got altogether, actually graduating this year, we've probably got about 35 students. And they haven't got a book each. They're working in teams, most of them. But that means we've got about 18, 20 books. Yeah, which, it's hard work for us because we have to supervise them and, hold their hands all the way through and sort out any issues that come up. But that's normal in publishing. So, for example, authors don't deliver on time.
Yeah.
How you can handle that. Illustrators say they're going to do things and they don't. So how do you handle that? At which point do you cut them off? And because you've got a print deadline. it's all very real. But, they feel the consequences because it's actually a real book that we're actually going to really publish that might go as big as Colbath Street. So, and they know that.
Yeah, of course.
It's pressure, but, after they've left, they kind of go, oh, I'm so glad that, you made me do that, because I talked to a publisher, and they're like, you did what?
Yeah.
And like I say, I won't pretend it's easy, but then it's not easy, and you might as well make all the mistakes whilst they're in the university rather than in Penguin Random House.
Yeah, of course. All right, so on to the final question that either stumps people or really, really excites people.
That was built up.
I know. I like to give it a little bit of tension before I ask it. What book that you're currently reading would you like to recommend? And I know this question gets a load of people that can either remember, like they know what they want to say, or they don't.
Oh God, this is a really sad thing, but I'm not really reading a lot for pleasure right now. Pleasure. I mean, it is very pleasurable to read the books I'm reading. But one of the curses of being a publisher is that you usually don't really, a small publisher, is that you don't really get to choose what you're reading.
You can just pick one. It's fine. You can pick like anyone, even if you read it in months ago.
I have manuscripts this high by the side of my bed right now, and I am reading a couple of books that the agent has sent me from AJ Hartley, the author of Colbath Street. So he has the series that is about Will Shakespeare. So I'm just trying to read those at the moment and enjoying them. Which is great. It's great if I'm enjoying them, because I've read a billion books. And I'm also reading the Copy Editor's Handbook and boring academic books like that. But I do have a book by the side of my bed, and it's about the Bletchley codes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm absolutely fascinated by the women who worked on those coding systems, and I don't think it's told enough, to be honest with you, especially not at YA level. So I'd love to see a book like that. And I'm also reading a non-fiction book about the Dick Care ladies. So you won't have heard of those, because outside of Preston no one ever has. But the Dick Care ladies were munition factory workers in the First World War, and they formed a football team.
I actually have heard of the football team. I watched a documentary about it.
Ah, okay.
So that's how I've heard of it. Yeah.
They became huge and packed out stadiums. 20,000 people came to see them in Preston, for example. And they, ordinary women with ordinary lives, but they actually went all over America, winning matches, and all over Europe. And it's just amazing, because obviously these women had never been outside of Preston 1 minute, and then the next minute they were travelling the globe, and their families didn't always understand what they were doing. Some of them were married; husbands did not understand in the home, so it had a massive impact on their lives. But they became too popular, so. The Football Association did not like the fact that they were getting more audiences than the men, and they ultimately banned women's football from the FA until the 1980s. Because of that. So that history is pretty fascinating. I'm reading a non-fiction book about that at the moment, but I got so inspired by it, we are actually commissioning a series of fictionalised books about these women's lives.
That's a really interesting note.
So we have got a meeting with a certain author tomorrow morning in Liverpool called Cathy Cassidy.
Oh, incredible. That sounds so interesting. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. It was such an interesting discussion.
No problem at all.
Thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Very good to speak to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. That's it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. You can follow Debbie on Twitter at PublishingDeb. If you'd like to be involved with the podcast, you can get in touch through Twitter at NovelM16 and use the hashtag Slothcast, or you can send me an email at slumberingSlothBookNook@gmail.com. You can always find our podcast on our YouTube channel, Slumbering Sloth Book Nook, or you can download it from Podbean and Apple Podcast for an on-the-go experience. See you next week. Bye!